My name is Gavin Evans, and this is my review of The Harder They Fall. Now, I wasn't going to watch this movie because I don't really like westerns all that much. That's not to say there's not great movies within that genre, there definitely are. I love Django Unchained, Born Tomahawk, Unforgiven, The Lone Ranger, The Hateful Eight, among many others. But it's also a genre that I find to have either great, excellent movies or really bad and boring movies. There's very few in between. So I wasn't going to watch this movie, but I heard great things, and I'm like, maybe this will be one of the great ones. So I watched it, and I have to say it is definitely not. This movie has a stacked cast, but I have to say for the most part, I was underwhelmed by everyone. Idris Elba is a clear highlight here. He's very menacing in this role. It kind of shocks me that Idris Elba hasn't done more movies where he plays a villain because he does a fantastic job as it. R.J. Skylar also is good in this movie. He brings a big personality to it. But for the most part, everyone else just left me underwhelmed. I don't feel like the actors added much to their characters. They didn't add much personality, and the performances were nothing overly great. Regina King, I actually found to be really bad in this movie. I didn't buy her as her character whatsoever. But this movie is also directed by director Jeremy Samuel. I definitely mispronounced that name, and he definitely brings style to this movie. Now, whether or not that style is for you, well, that's up to you to decide. I don't mind stylized movies. I don't mind it when it's style over substance. As long as there's an energy to the movie, as long as the movie does a good job of what it's trying to do, and does he succeed here? Absolutely not, no way. Yes, he brings a style, and I do appreciate that. He's definitely a talented director, and I do look forward to see what he makes next, because I definitely see potential in him. But this movie focuses way too much on style and little on anything else. There's almost no tension in this movie. Whenever the action is going down, you don't feel wrapped up in the action. You're distracted by all the loud music cues, all the everything else that's going on. It just takes you out of it. There's not a good balance between the two of them, and also just so many moments lack any sort of weight. There's characters that die that are supposed to be shocking moments, and the style just totally robs you of any impact that moment could have had. So instead of enhancing the movie, I actually found the style distracted you from it. And also the soundtrack just didn't cut it for me. I found the soundtrack to be really bad. The song choices rarely ever fit. And some of the choices they make are just baffling bad. That's not to say there's not some good ones. There are moments where I'm like, okay, that was a good choice. My favorite song used in the entire movie was called Wednesday's Child, which was really well utilized within. But for the most part, I found the soundtrack to be really poorly utilized throughout. And let's talk about the pacing in this movie. It's awful. It's terribly paced. It's 2 hours and 20 minutes long, and it's far too long. It's way too dragged out. But there was a point where I'm just like, I feel like nothing has happened in this movie. So I stopped and paused it, and we were 45 minutes in. The actual plot of this movie doesn't really kick in until an hour and 20 minutes of this movie. That's insane. I understand that you have to build characters and develop the story and the characters naturally. I totally get that. But that's just excessive. And if you're going to do it, at least have me be entertained, because I found the first half of this movie to be dreadfully boring. None of these characters are interesting. I never found anything remotely special about them. The main romance that we're supposed to be so invested in just has zero impact. I just did not care for the two whatsoever. And I found the characters to be really dumb. Like, they come up with this plan to get this guy, so they send this girl in to pretend that she's going to buy a place up, and they just see through it instantly. And of course she gets captured, and it's like, well, no shit. What did you expect to go down? So I actually find the characters to be really dumb. And just, the movie took far too long to get going. And then the plot kicks in for about like 20 minutes, and then the rest of the movie is just the final showdown. So it's like you spend half the movie setting it up, then you got, big event, I do this for you, if you do this for me, and that lasts about 5 minutes, and then we got the final showdown. So it's beginning, middle, end. it's just a mess. Like, it really is. It just feels like 2 acts instead of 3-act structure, which just kind of takes you out of it. It's just like all that build up for just that final showdown. And maybe it would be better if that final showdown was even remotely memorable, but it really isn't. And it's, once again, far too dragged out. Like, I think that final showdown lasts like half an hour. And because of that, no matter how much style you bring to the movie, it doesn't mean that the movie is filled with energy, because it's totally not. Like, the movie's trying to make it look all fun and exciting, but then at the same time, everyone's moving so slowly, and it just gets so repetitive. And also, there's a character played by Lakeith Stanfield, and I felt like they built up a rivalry between him and another character up really well. And just the direction they take, not those 2 characters, but Lakeith Stanfield's character, I just think it was a terrible decision. They made a terrible character choice, and I was not a fan of that. You know, one Western movie I love, and I know it's controversial for me to say that I love it, but I think The Lone Ranger is an excellent movie, and the best part about that movie is the final fight. Like, the entire movie builds to that final fight, but when you get to that final fight, it is only 10 minutes long. It's only 10 minutes long. But it feels so much longer in the best kind of way, because there's just so much going on, and it's constantly moving, and there's all this stuff going on, and it's doing unique and interesting stuff with the camera, and you're just fully locked in that entire time. And then you see like a half-hour long showdown that feels as dragged out as this one does, and you can just see the contrast between the 2 of them. And the ending for this movie just did nothing for me. That said, though, there was some good character stuff in the last 10 minutes that I was really impressed by, and that's definitely when Jonathan Majors really stood out as an actor for me, because up until that point, I didn't think there was anything impressive about his performance, but he's good in those last 10 minutes. That said, I really did not like this movie. Now, I will give credit where it's due. Jaume Samuel definitely has a distinct voice that he contributes to this movie, and for that, I do respect him. That said, though, I wasn't impressed with the filmmaking here. I thought it was overly stylized. It was using it as a crutch to make up for the bland script. I thought the soundtrack choices were really bad for the most part. The performances were, for the most part, just average. The action is forgettable. The movie is far too dragged out. It could have been a tight hour-and-a-half long movie that would have been all the memorable for it. I don't think any of the characters have distinct personalities, with the exception of Idris Elba and RJ Sayers' characters. Yeah, this movie just didn't do it for me. So I'm going to go ahead and give The Harder They Fall a 4.5 out of 10. Okay, have you seen The Harder They Fall? What did you think about it? Let me know in the comments down below. Make sure you like, make sure you comment, make sure you subscribe. Stay tuned for some more videos soon, and Gavin out.